repurposed 2 airplanes that otherwise would just have been forgotten. So that's really what I think is the greatest part about this, is that we've repurposed something and now we have this opportunity to be here and share this passion with everybody.
I'm Steph Strickland. This is another segment in EAA's Spirit of Aviation Week. I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Ryan Dembroski. How are you doing, Ryan?
Well, I'm doing awesome. How is it going?
You know what? We're all just kind of surviving in this new landscape right now, but it was a great opportunity to spend some time talking to you in depth about your path to aviation and how you learned to fly and some of the cool experiences you've had as it has surrounded aviation. So my first question to you is, are you shaving any legs on your landings these days?
Not right now, but I've been known to. I've been known to shave some legs on some landings. So.
Okay, what's the story behind that?
So that was a fun little inside joke from one of the videos on my YouTube channel. I think it was like episode 2. It's like one of the first ones I did. My friend Lynn, who's also a producer, we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. She and my friend Cassidy, we all went to college together. I took them for their first airplane ride. Beautiful, like idyllic, perfect airplane flying night. Sun setting. We're getting ready to land at Hartford, Wisconsin, to switch passengers into the front seat. And I mentioned to Lynn that there's another YouTuber who talks about buttering the bread, and she was like, "That's dumb." And so she came up with it, and I just stole it.
There's a guy on YouTube, and he's like, "I want everyone to watch how I'm gonna butter the bread on this one."
I don't like that.
No,
you got to think of
I gotta come up with my own thing. Yeah.
I don't like buttering the bread. But it's to signify like what?
How smooth he lands.
Yeah. What are smooth things? Shaving my legs. Shave the legs on this one.
I'm gonna really shave the legs on this one.
That when you do like a really nice smooth landing, you shave the legs. You really shave the legs on that one. But I've been doing much flying, so I haven't shaved any legs in a while.
My sole goal in asking you that was to get you to say that phrase right there. So mission accomplished. This interview is concluded. No.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. It's been nice.
Yeah.
See you later.
Your YouTube channel, when did you start it, and how did you come up with the name for it?
So I started the YouTube channel actually like, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. I made a bunch of content. Actually, I'm going to be releasing a lot of that content when people see this over the next couple of weeks, because I'm running out of current content. I just was making stuff and sitting on it and having that like dumb artist thing where you self-censor. And so a couple years ago now, I think it was almost 3 years ago now, I actually started posting stuff. So SuperAero began really 3 years ago, but it's been something I've been trying to get started for a while. The name actually, in that same indecisive mode, I couldn't come up with a name. I was having a lot of anxiety over what to call it. So I've got a friend in the advertising world. He's got an excellent name, Nick Gagliano. And Nicholas Gagliano, one day, he just sent me a 2-word text. It was like, SuperAero, do it. And I was like, okay, no more excuses. Let's get this party started. So it's all him. I didn't pay him anything for that. I haven't even taken him for an airplane ride yet. So probably owe him that, I guess. But that's the story.
So we'll definitely talk more about how your flying has evolved, because a lot of it, and a lot of, your Oshkosh experiences have, and EAA AirVenture experiences have shown up on your channel. But I want to go back to your path into flying. So do you come from an aviation background? What is it that made you decide this was something you wanted to pursue?
So I do sort of come from an aviation background. Way before I was born, my father was a private pilot. He flew a Taylor craft, BC-12D, I think, is the model number. And he flew it in a flying club when he was in his 20s out of Racine. I'm pointing like you can see the field to the south, Racine Batten Field in Wisconsin. And actually, if you want to do some extra credit work, if you're watching this, that aircraft, we went and saw it, and it was actually an article in Sport Aviation magazine. I don't know how many years ago. There was a Bearcraft on the cover. Just search for the one with search for the one with the Bearcraft. Bearcraft? Am I saying the right aircraft name?
You're asking the wrong person.
Experimental. Oh my gosh, it's super embarrassing.
You know when you'll find out? Everyone in the comments is going to let you know. Don't worry about it.
It's the Bear Hawk. Oh my goodness. It's the one with the Bear Hawk on the cover. See, chill out, everybody. The one with the Bear Hawk on the cover from a number of years ago. And there's a whole write-up that was done about us like flying together to see this old Taylor craft that he had flown. But so he did that. I mean, I wasn't alive yet, but when I became an airplane kid, like, you know, the classic kid with the toys and drawing airplanes all the time, he and my mom were just really supportive about encouraging me. We weren't the kind of family that could afford to send me to flight training, but they were really supportive of just like the passion I had. So I went to a lot of EAA events, spent a lot of time at the museum in Oshkosh because we're just a short drive away. So that's how it started. I mean, he was definitely supportive, but you know, we never went flying together as a family. It was something that he did before he had kids, and then something that I kind of picked up on my own. I don't know if it's genetic or what, but
I think, yeah, it's a mix of both. I think it's being in the right place at the right time. And when you're at an age that something can resonate with you and you go to an air show or you have a family connection or, you know, a family friend, someone takes you flying and you get that seed planted in you. And then some people are like, hey, I'm good. It wasn't for me. And then other people are like, I have to do this all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what happened next? When did you actually start learning how to fly?
So, you know, all the way through high school, through college, it just seemed like something that was out of reach for me, if I'm honest. I hadn't done enough research to see how truly like accessible aviation can be. And then went and got a job and worked my butt off and saved some money. And there was this moment, it's another video on my YouTube channel where, because I had the archival footage, Ford Motor Company paid me to do this thing for one of their cars. And part of it is I somehow convinced them that I needed to go to air combat training in California. And so went air combat training, doing high yo-yos, low yo-yos, upside down in this that's Marchetti, like Italian close air support plane. Puked everywhere. It's like a lot. There's a lot of puke. But it just like reignited it. So then like right after that, I was going to Oshkosh every year. A couple of years after that, I had this is the sad part of the story. I had a cousin that passed away, and it just like triggered it for me. It's like, whoa, like I got to do this. Like I can't wait anymore. You know, I got to do this. So I just pulled some money together and did some flight training.
Well, I think, you know, I'm sorry to hear about your cousin, and hopefully your cousin would be very, very proud of what you've accomplished, and certainly would get a kick out of your sense of humor, because when you say that you puked everywhere, I'm honestly surprised that then made you decide this was something that was for you.
Yeah. And so we did the whole air combat thing, and I kept it mostly in the bags. Let's be real. I'm very proud of that. It wasn't unlike sorry. But like at the end, I was talking to it was an F-18, former F-18 squadron commander who was he's
just like, okay, princess.
Yeah, exactly. He was very kind, though. He's very kind about it. And afterwards, I was like, man, I'm just so embarrassed. I don't know what to do. And this was such an amazing experience, but can I do it? Because I'm going to puke all the time, and it's going to be like, what do I do? And he's like, listen, like, there's not a fighter pilot that exists that hasn't puked his brains out training. Like, you got it. Like, you'll build a tolerance up. If you want to do it, you just got to fight through it. And so years later, when I'm putting around in J3 Cubs, chewing ginger gum and like wearing those things on my wrists, like that voice, his name was Spartan, or his call sign was Spartan. And so I kept thinking about like, okay, what would Spartan say? He'd say, push through it, push through it. And sure enough, by the time I got to my solo, it just went away. I mean, I still get a little, if I do like unusual attitude practice or too many steep turns, if I'm like really working hard and it's hot out or something. But it's mostly gone. It's mostly gone. I'm proud to say. I've never puked. I've never puked in a plane that I was piloting command of. Let's put it that way.
I laugh, but I think it's awesome. I think I can't imagine feeling like I'm going to puke on a steep turn. So I just think that there's definitely people out there who feel like, I'm way too prone to motion sickness. And I think don't let that be the barrier, because if you've done it, it just goes to show that it is something that you can work through, even though the process of getting there is obviously uncomfortable. So you decide you want to start really living life. That's the message. That trigger for you was, I've got to start living life to the fullest.
I don't want to be like cliche about it, but like, yeah, do it.
You have to. And so, but then you did it. So this, I'm kind of working out of order here, but I do have to ask, how did the Ford Motor Company come into play with this, air combat flying experience? So for folks who don't know, what do you do for a living? Because that's like a disconnect.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
No, it's great. So I work as a producer in TV and film. Mostly that means I make TV commercials, and now that's really just becoming web videos because that's where people are spending their money. So, I mean, this was like, 2009, right? So over a decade ago now, Ford Motor Company had this thing where they were promoting the Ford Fiesta. You guys remember the Ford Fiesta?
I do.
It's still a car. They still sell it. And I was in the right target demo age range, and they had this application where you could apply to be like someone who would do experiential marketing, like driving the car around and showing it to people, and then making videos and social content around the vehicle to get name recognition up. So what they did was, they would have us do missions every month, and one of them was an adventure. And I was like, it would be super cool. Would be if I drove this car from Wisconsin to Los Angeles, and I flew in not jet aircraft, but if I flew in some air combat training, and they went for it. They pitched it and they went for it. So
all right, that's my golf clap. That's the way you get it done. Now that all that was accomplished, how did you go about selecting a flight school?
So I mean,
proximity.
Yeah, well, I mean, so here's the thing. Like, I live in southeastern Wisconsin. There are a handful of fields nearby. For me, it was a combination of finding a place that jived, right, with like I felt like I connected with the instructors, that they were in it for my goals too, of just wanting to be a really good pilot and to have a lot of fun while learning to be a safe and proficient pilot. And went to all the different schools and kind of weighed the options. It didn't feel a real good connection to some of them, if I'm honest. And then there was a moment where I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to afford being a powered aircraft pilot. So I went and took a glider flight at Hartford, Wisconsin. That's where the Wisconsin Soaring Society is based, but definitely was based at the time. And actually, it turned really green on that flight too, because it's like 100 degrees. And
no way.
You're just doing like, I didn't lose it, but so anyway, I'm like, the glider flight was amazing. I want to learn how to fly gliders and sail planes soon. But we land, I get out, I'm like all shades of green. And the great thing about, if you've never been to like a soaring day, is there's all these. It's generally like older men that fly gliders for some reason. But they make like the glider clubs are amazing. Like they'll make like an event out of it. So there were all these like, it's like, I don't hope it's not derogatory. It's like all these grandmas, right? Like hanging out on this side of the runway with like cookies and lemonade. And so they saw I was green and went into like mom mode. And they're like, here, like have some lemonade and have some cookies. And it's like, this is amazing. Like they're taking care of me. And I'm sitting there watching the gliders come in. And suddenly I see this beautiful bright yellow Piper Cub come in on final. And it's at idle. And there's that sound that I don't know if it feels like Piper Cubs make it better than any other one. It's probably a lie, but there's that like little like whisper noise that the prop makes at idle when it's coming in, and something about whoever that pilot was. Thank you. I don't know who it was, but like this like magical perfect 3-point landing, and I was like, I gotta do that. That was cool. And so I went and talked to them at the flight school there. It was Cub Air Flight. Steve Krogh, again, I promise this wasn't planned this way. Steve Krogh he's got an article in Sport Aviation. That was my instructor. And so he and I really kicked it off really well. The romance of the J3 Cub was a big part of it. Tailwheel, I was reading all about how that makes you a better pilot. I don't know, probably. I'll take it. And then the other side was cost. So the cost to fly in an old vintage aircraft compared to the aircraft, more modern, like, G1000, Cessna 172s and stuff, was like half. I did my, and I'll totally tell the numbers. I don't think you could do it today because that was, again, like 2012. So it was a while ago. But like I did the whole thing for like $6,000 over the course of a year. Which is like the deal of now that's not including the gas to drive an hour each way, uphill both ways in the snow, but it was a little over $6,000 to do the whole rating, which is also less money than Ford paid for me to fly in that air combat thing. So all three of those things together really are how I chose was who do I connect with. What place makes me feel excited when I come in to learn, and then just could I make the dollars work?
So as I think back, there's some great video of you in your first solo, and you see those steam gauges and the simplicity of the airframe that you're flying. Tell me the story of your first solo. How was it?
So I think the video you're talking about is my first solo cross country. But I can tell you about and I'm sure you'll cut to that and show it. That was awesome. I think the two most memorable things are the first solo and then that first solo cross country, because those are the two times where you're really tested to do it by yourself, right? So first solo is like, it's almost like flight instructors get together and they conspire to make the story the same. It was like it was December 2nd that year, unseasonably warm day, and because otherwise the Piper Cub is it's cold. Doing pattern work, it was just really like I remember feeling really confident and almost bored, right? Like almost like I got this. And we landed on the grass runway at Hartford. On runway 18, and Steve, the instructor, he said, just pull over here for a minute. I got to talk to you. And I was like, okay, what did I do? And then he like hops out and like unhooks his headset. And instead of telling me this with the headset on, we're like yelling now over the engine. And he's like, hey, like, remember, without me in here, it's going to climb different, whatever. Like, watch your speeds. You'll be fine. But like, please don't bend it. And he's like, go get him, Tiger. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I went, taxied back and took off. And it was all totally normal until that base to final turn. And at that base to final turn, I had this like, oh, wow, it's me. Like, I got to do this myself. And I think I would like to say they were probably like the three best landings of my career. I have no idea if that's true. That's how I choose to remember them. But what was funny is the sun was kind of coming down, and I did the 3, and I was like, I think I got time for a 4th. And so I went and like snuck in a 4th. And as I was like taking off for the 4th, this other pilot was like, hey man, you don't have lights. And it wasn't that dark. He was just messing with me. But like the idea of like, hey, like you're trying to steal a little extra one before the sun goes down. And I was like, well, wouldn't you? Like, like let's get this done. So we pull in, and they cut the shirt tails, and I know a friend of mine who's an aviation journalist actually got his private pilot that day, so he landed, and we were celebrating in the hangar and just having fun. So, you'll never forget it. Like if you're watching this and you're like thinking about it, like you'll never forget that moment. I think that's like literally up there, and I apologize to my wife and kids, but like it's probably like 4. It's like wedding, kids being born, and then like soloing. Like it's like that ingrained, like in terms of the purity of the memory. The solo cross country video that you'll see is coming back from the final leg on my solo cross country. I think it was just south of Stoughton, Wisconsin. I was just like so filled with joy that I like realized I wasn't gonna like get lost or run out of gas, because in the Piper Cubs it is just steam gauges. It's a map. It's like a paper sectional with like a pencil line on it, and you're like the old joke is you're looking out of the aircraft for the pencil line on the ground. So when I realized I had figured it out, I took this video of me just being like, "Yes, I did it! I hope I almost did it."
You've had this opportunity now to fly different types of aircrafts, including a different type of weather conditions. I mean, you went from like, okay, I can, land in the grass field in your home airport to, well, it's a little snowy today.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about how, once you accomplished that goal in aviation, you started moving into flying other airplanes.
So it's gonna people are gonna think that I like have like zero money, and that's probably almost true. Like one of the things so I'm gonna soapbox for half a second. One of the things that became clear for me is that renting an aircraft, I mean, the Piper Cubs were very affordable, but they were far away. To have something that was near me and more accessible to fly, the costs were just more than I could handle. And I thought that aviation was going to be like a thing I did and I like talked about having done until someone turned me on to flying clubs. And there are a couple really great three Cessna 172 flying clubs at Timmerman Field where I'm based out of. And I found one of them, and actually I'm in my second one now because I found one that was even more affordable. I could get even more flight time for my dollar. But I found one, and great group of guys. The one I'm in now is a great group of guys and gals, which is even better. And just like using that now instead of it being, $160 an hour to rent a Cessna, it's, $65 an hour with gas for me to go flying. So now it's like, okay, like now I can you can budget that. That's a lot more flight time per hour if you make that little commitment to paying for the equity in it. So went to Timmerman Field, got checked out in the Cessna, had my shiny owner keys, right? It's super cool. You own part of this thing and you're in this group of people trying to make it happen, and started expanding the envelope. And when you have access, I mean, a Piper Cub is basically like a motorcycle with wings, right? No heat, barely any instrumentation. To go to a Cessna felt like a rocket ship, and that was like, well, now I can start to expand my envelope. So I think you're talking about the first episode of SuperAero, with an instructor friend, down to, 3 miles visibility with snow, that. It stressed me out a little bit, but
well, the best line is when he's like, it was something to the effect of, we don't need to really be thinking a lot about brakes.
Right. It's like, yeah, maybe just don't worry about the brakes. And then what's funny in the clip is I pressed them anyways. And he's like, nope.
Appreciate it, thank you.
What I wouldn't do is worry too much about brakes. Dude. Nicely done. Ooh. Yeah, don't worry about those.
So sorry, that was a long-winded answer in terms of flying clubs are a thing that you should look at. But that was the next step, was to level up. At Cub Air, you'd go to Piper Cubs, and then you fly a Cherokee for a little bit because you can't take your your private pilot test without having a plane with like radios and stuff to do radio navigation. But so then to go to like a Cessna felt like going, I mean, it literally was going from the 1940s to the 1990s in my case. It was like just this incredible jump in technology.
I know you make a joke. You're saying, it'll probably sound like you don't have any money, but I think for so many people, the biggest impediment is not desire, it is finances. And so the ways that you're offering, looking for an older, simple airframe to start in, looking at flying clubs in your area, all of those things really do matter for helping people get across the finish line. It's another reason you hear people start and then they just can't finish because their flying gets spread out and they can't keep up on their lessons. And so, I mean, I think that it's all super good advice. I want to talk to you about, I was introduced to you actually through EAA AirVenture.
It's true.
And
I'm sorry.
I'm not. But what I had done in the process was look up some of the video work you did before you and I worked together. So I want to talk to you about your Girl Scout cookie episode. It is one of the funniest aviation videos. And for those of you watching, I highly encourage, go look for SuperAero. Again, I'm going to spell it because people get it wrong. It's SuperAero, AERO, and look up the Girl Scout cookie episode. What gave you that idea? I think I know, but I want to hear you tell the story.
I mean, so there's a joke in aviation that like pilots get bored and we need a thing to do, and you need a reason to fly. And so there's this old thing about the $100 hamburger, which now is like the $200 hamburger probably, where you go out with your friends, you fly to an airport restaurant, you eat a hamburger that's usually not very good, and and the whole cost of the flight for the hamburger is like, $200, whatever. $100 hamburger is where it came from. And so I have a friend whose daughter's a Girl Scout, and I was looking for a reason to fly, and they live, maybe like a 20-30 minute flight away from me in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And so I was like, I'm going to go pick up these Girl Scout cookies. And on the way back, which is the moment that you're talking about, decided I had to indulge myself and have some Thin Mints, and then do the math about like, okay, like how much were these cookies? How much did these cookies cost with this flight? So yeah, that was the idea. It's just,
So I got 4 boxes of cookies at $16 is what they charged me. That's great. Let's call it 1.5 probably on the Hobbs. 1.5. What's 1.5? I can't math with these cookies in my mouth. Let's round up to 2. Let's say 2 hours on the Hobbs. Times $65 an hour. So 2 times 65 is 120, 130. Right? 130 plus 16, $146 cookies. I'm eating right now. These are really good.
I needed an excuse to go see a friend, and I was hungry, I guess.
They were like $140 plus cookies.
Yeah, it's like 146 or something. I don't know. I do the math in the episode. Like I'm like, okay. And it also, I'm never good at math. So when you're flying a plane, eating cookies, I ate a whole sleeve of Thin Mints. I'm like just chomping away. Doing all that together is funny. I think that's also part of the humor, is watching me like actually struggle to do basic arithmetic, like with a mouthful of cookies. But
one of the things that was so fun is, again, when AirVenture had mentioned that you were coming and we were going to work on something together. And I was thinking, what can I offer to you in, you're a YouTuber and you create this entertaining, funny type of content. And a woman named Sarah who works with EAA was like, he's perfect. Send him on the way. So I come and pick you up in the
need
Gulf.
to send her the payment for that. Thank you, Sarah, wherever you are.
I want you to tell the story of what you thought you were getting into at EAA. And this really does talk about the magic of EAA AirVenture, what you thought you were getting into versus what you got.
I mean, and I want to apologize to you for this story because I do feel bad.
It's funny.
So my experience at AirVenture was I was helping. I think EAA was helping me more than I was helping EAA, but Sarah and I had talked about ways that I could maybe make some content at the show, and I've been doing some stuff with ultralights and was trying to explore different story ideas. It was like the first time I felt like a journalist, like kind of like, okay, I gotta like sniff out some stories, and there's so many amazing ones there, right? And then I get this text on my phone, and it's like, hey, this is Steph. Like, I got your number. Like, do you want to come see the F-35s tomorrow? And I think I don't know,
I remember what you said. What you said was, I have a lot going on. I think it might work. I remember that. And I was like, cool. I mean, you let me know. Like,
I was like super stressed because I had promised Sarah, the woman we're talking about, I had promised her that I was going to do all these episodes. I was like, don't worry, you can count on me. I'm going to cut all these videos. And then like my first video story that I had done, like the guy canceled on me like 2 days in a row. And I was like, I'm 2 days behind. And you're like, let's go see these F-35s. So I was sitting like at the Airstream camper. My buddy let me camp in that night. We're like around the camper, and they're like, oh, like, what are you doing? What are you doing tomorrow? And I was like, I don't know, like looking at some F-35s. Like I didn't know. I was like, I think that'll be cool. And they were like, yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing. I was like, I don't know, like I just don't like. Is it just gonna be we're gonna look at them together? Because that I could look at them at the plaza. Like I don't know. I was like I feel like this story is not very flattering to me. So I was just like, well, this is cool. Like whatever. Like we wouldn't have been connected if this wasn't something that was worth checking out. And I think I actually ran into you. Like I was sitting under a tree editing video. Like the next year, like, hey, like it's gonna be awesome. See you tomorrow. And I was like, how could this be? Like, is this going to be cool, or is this going to be, like, cool?
Was I on a golf cart, like, going by, like, hey, bud, I'll catch you later?
You were like, do you need good internet? Because you can get some in here. And I was like, nah, I'm good. And you're like, all right, bye. Like, see you tomorrow. I'm embarrassed. I was like, I don't know. Like, we're just going to, like, look at some planes. I didn't understand. I think I even said to you, like, I don't know what the story is. And you're like, don't worry about the story. Just come check the planes out. Like, you were like, just chill out, dude. And so that was what I expected. I was expected to go, like, look at some jets. I got a little bit more than I bargained for, to say the least.
We have a little clip that you can check out, and then we're going to come back to it.
I definitely got that in my mouth. Also, it was hot, which makes sense. Freedom dust. Steph, you're my new best friend.
Yay! I'm so glad. Did you have a nice time?
That was amazing.
Good.
Holy
So here's the thing. You come out and you have a chance to see up close and personal, as close as you can possibly be without getting in a lot of trouble and creating a lot of paperwork. You have a chance to see these jets, and it really, I'm so glad you really enjoyed that experience, because on the back end of it, you were like, what just happened?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm so embarrassed, right? Because I should have known. I mean, Oshkosh, and I know we're all like missing being there in person this year, because it has this weird, it's like this magical thing. And so, like that experience, my expectations were so low, again, embarrassingly. And then to have them literally blown away, like to have that experience, to see these things as close as we got, right? To talk to the pilots, to get my face sandblasted by like American freedom
dust.
Freedom dust, right? Like that was unreal. And it was just separately like that can't happen anywhere else. You know, like there was this certain magic. I came back and my friends were like, well, was it cool? And I was like, you guys are going to hate me. And all my friends were so mad, partially because I was like, I don't know if this is going to be cool the night before. Super frustrated. It was truly incredible. It was a truly incredible thing. And I think, you know, for me, also taught, like, just, I learned so much, you know, like, I think there's like, and I know this is something you talk a lot about, Steph, is like, you know, how do we communicate, all the positivity that's within like the Air Force, the armed forces, like that part of aviation, military aviation. How do we communicate that to the like jokers like me who are goofing around in Cessnas on YouTube? And like that moment was like super eye-opening to say like, whoa, there's like a part of aviation that, I mean, you know, like I'm sitting here with like my childhood toys for motivation, like good old F-15, right? Like I definitely like, just like every other pilot, like look at those things with respect, right? But to actually experience it in that way is unreal.
I think it's great. I think if there's one thing that EAA AirVenture and what we're doing here digitally with EAA together, it's about making those connections. It's the thing that makes aviation so special. My last question to you is, what makes you the most passionate about aviation?
Oh man, that's a deep one. I mean, where do you start? I think so. Obviously, when I started learning to fly, well, actually, let's put it this way. I think like the first AirVenture I ever went to, I like binged it hard. I like got a campsite and I went there, stayed the whole week, and didn't know anybody. I was just walking around, soaking it up, didn't know anybody. I remember calling my wife on like Thursday at the end of the week, and she's like, how's it going? And I was like, you know, like, this is almost like overwhelming. There's like so much here. I don't know anybody. I'm almost like lonely because I don't have a group, right? And she was like, well, have you talked to anybody yet? Like, have you actually like introduced yourself to anybody? Have you like gone up and like made a connection with someone? You all have this thing in common, that you love this thing, this gift of aviation. And we participated, everyone at AirVenture and watching this and whatever, we all participate in aviation where we're able and where we can, and we all share the same passion, right? So she was like, go talk to somebody. And so I went and started talking to people like the end of the week, right? Like, and like everyone was so warm and welcoming. Follow up, like going to get my license, having a community of people, having people willing to share, like even you, Steph, right? Like you're willing to share that moment with me. You could have shared that moment with anybody. You shared it with me. I am now building this community of really, really tight-knit friends. Marty, the guy who we were talking about before, like I would say he's one of my best friends I have right now. And we talk daily, right? And that's amazing. And we met through airplanes, right? That's just so incredible. So I think it's like, and it's the old Paul Poberezny quote. I think it would talk like, come for the planes, stay for the people. I always thought that was kind of I was like, oh, that's like a good marketing line to say, but it's like real. It's like a really real thing. So aviation has brought that to me. I think the other thing is like with that, then something about even for me, like if you look at the video with Lynn and Cassidy, we're talking about shaving the legs, right? You know, Lynn and I knew each other in college. We don't always get to hang out. We all have, you know, various stages of building families now. That moment, that flight, even though it was fairly routine for me as a pilot, that flight like bonded us in this weird way. Even though we were already friends before, like that thing is like so visceral and real for all of us now. We still talk about it years later. And so that's the other part of it that I don't know how to explain it, but like there's something, or like the F-35s or even just like sitting around the campfire at the show or whatever, right? Whatever you're doing, something about the way aviation works. I don't know if it's the heightened stakes or what. It just like, it crystallizes these moments for you in a really special and and unique way. Now, that's not my soapbox about like what I want to accomplish, but that's, I think, what it brought to me.
Then what do you want to accomplish?
I think for me, I want to see us open our arms even wider in aviation. I think part of that is like making sure people know it's accessible. That's part of my mission on my channel now. I've decided is just like making sure people know that one, you can like you can't like it's. I feel like a paid speaker at a high school. Like you can follow your dreams, you can do it, but you like can. For me it was like I'm in my basement right now, if you couldn't tell, and like there's a gaming machine, a gaming computer next to me right now, and like it's like, okay, well, if I like don't buy these video games, that's enough to go flying a couple hours every month or whatever, right? You can make those sacrifices. You can, if you want it, you can do it. There are so many ways to get involved. So that accessibility is one, because I think when I told my wife, I was like, I'm gonna get my pilot's license, and she's like, we can't afford a plane. And she's thinking about like a $500,000 plane or whatever, right? Spend some time in Barnstormers, you can see that it's way more affordable than that. Hashtag not a sponsor. But so I think there's that. And then I think this other thing happens just in terms of us being inclusive. I think we need to do a better job as a community of being more open to diverse opinions, more open to diversity, and being inclusive in this passion. I think that sometimes aviators get a bad rap for gatekeeping. And I don't know exactly why it is. I haven't figured it out yet. But I do think part of it is that this thing is so special, right? I mean, listen to me talk. Like, you and I had this amazing moment, this day together, almost a year ago, and like it blew my mind and maybe it changed my life, right? I'm not exaggerating at all. It's so special. I think we put up walls to protect it because we don't want to lose it. And I think what we don't realize as a community is that if we don't bring those walls down, we are going to lose it. Right? We need more pilots. We need more pilots. More pilots means more airplanes. More pilots means more people making headsets. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like a supply and demand problem. So that's, I don't know how to solve that yet. And maybe this got way too serious. But that's, I think, the two things that I'm looking for trying to do is like, how do we get more people involved from all walks of life? How do we show people that this is a thing that you can do, and you can do it together with your friends and all that jazz? I don't know. Now I'm just rambling, but
it's not serious. It's actually quite profound. It is the embodiment of the quote, come for the planes, stay for the people. Ryan Dembroski, you are awesome, and I'm so fortunate to have met you because of the magic of EAA AirVenture. I want to thank you for your time, participating in EAA Together Spirit of Aviation Week content. And for those of you who are watching, we have so much more in store for you. Stay tuned.